cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
And I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed you are, people. Indeed you are. You listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And for some of you, you're listening to us on Twitter. Because, yes, we have streamed this one to Twitter as well as YouTube. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome. My name is Machel St. Patrick, here at one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie and Machel. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm processing, Mash. Obviously, this is coming a few hours after West Indies lost the first test to South Africa by 87 runs. And we're here, as always, to dissect it. I think there's a lot of talking points. But before we start, Mash, do you want to go ahead with all the admin, get everything out of the way?
Yeah, admin as usual, people. If you're watching this on the screens, you can find us on, well, if you're watching us on Twitter, you know where we are, but you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Carib Cricket. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you're watching via YouTube. And when I say share, I mean send it to somebody who also loves West Indies cricket and is like, I wish I just had that one channel that covered everything to do with West Indies cricket, boys, girls, men, women, etc. We are the only medium where you can guarantee that that's going to happen. So share the channel as well. And if you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you can become a patron, www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. For as little as $2 of whatever your currency is, you can support us. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, the super chat icon's there, function is there, should you choose to use it, and so on and so forth. And join the Discord channel. It's in the YouTube descriptor. The Discord channel was jokes today. As West Indies were collapsing, enough people were just running jokes. Some people were despairing, tears were getting shed as West Indies collapse to 33 for 5. Listen, Santokie, I know you're not in the group yet, but it was so funny to see. You see, when like it became clear we were going to lose, there was a moment in the Discord chat where it was like someone switched the light on and everyone just started cussing all at the same time about what was going on. So it kind of changed from, yeah, let's rally, we might be able to chase down this 247. To everyone cussing whoever they could think to cuss by the time Mayers had got out. But you know how it goes, Santokie. That's West Indies cricket in a nutshell.
Yeah, never a dull day in West Indies cricket. But Mash, I don't know how I feel about this one. I mean, if you'd have told a lot of fans that West Indies would have lost within 3 days, they would have believed it. But the nature of this loss, it wasn't as if we got hammered by South Africa. In fact, I think I tweeted out, if you'd have told Andre Kohli or most fans who support West Indies that they would have 2.5 days to chase 247 runs to win the test, most people would take your hand off for that. That seems like a reasonable target. However, as we know, the pitch was very, very hard to bat on for both sides. And obviously, as West Indies, we talked on the preview show about the frailties in that batting lineup. But for me, I think the manner in which we capitulated today, in terms of knowing that it was a relatively modest total, it wasn't 300 plus, it was under 250. If we sort of essentially put Grime ball into practice, as we said, and just focused a bit more, we could have come close to that target. I mean, Jermaine Blackwood did demonstrate it later on in it. So I think the manner of loss, even though our batting was appalling, knowing that if it was just marginally better, we could have snuck a win. I think that probably hurts me more than if we just been battered by South Africa and completely outplayed. It's just because we had a chance to win, we just didn't capitalize on it.
Yeah, the chances for West Indies to win in South Africa, in fact, the chances for West Indies to win anywhere outside of Zimbabwe, against Afghanistan and Bangladesh, and I say that with respect to those sides, but the chances we get to win away are so slim that when they present themselves, that's why the carrot of false hope is always dangled, because when we see a rare chance of an actual away victory, we almost can't believe that we're in that position, right? Yesterday on the live show, everyone said, boy, well, if West Indies can if we can bowl South Africa out before lunch, and we only have to chase 250, we're in the game. I said 25% chance at best. Even if it was 250, and I think you tweeted at the time when we realized it was 247 to chase, you said, well, boy, only with some Guyanese rum in me do I believe that we could chase this one down. So neither you or me were confident that we could even get to 247, but we couldn't have asked. The bowlers did the job. Or did their job, is what I'm saying. We wanted them to get rid of them before lunch. We all said, yeah, because as long as we don't have to bat after tea, we should be fine. So we got the circumstances that we actually asked for, and the batters just didn't deliver. And I think the question mark I always have about these things, Santokie, is, and again, I said it on day one and I said it on day two. How many of the you always have to go for a scorecard and determine how many people were bowled out, how many people were got out versus how many people lost their wicket in a soft manner. And I'm just looking at it now. Craig was strangled down the leg side. That's a bit unfortunate. Tage, boy, well, he was chasing the one or what he was doing, but that was soft. Raymond Reef and Ross and Chase, I actually missed their dismissals. So somebody in the chat might have to tell me if those were softest. No, I saw Reefers. Reefer chased one outside off stump. His was soft.
Chase was clean bowled, I think, was it Jansen?
Was he leaving it? Did Chase leave it and get clean bowled? I think he left it.
It was the first ball duck, I think.
So you could argue, first ball. You could argue that was soft. Mayers was soft. 15 ball duck. Alzari. Well, Alzari just does what he does. Wild shot for no reason when he should have just stayed there with Jermaine Blackwood. So, not my issue is that I don't mind losing, right? I actually have no issue with losing. I mean, we've seen enough defeats in the last 23 years to not have to really mind when we lose. But I think it was Andrew who said on yesterday's show, there's a way to lose. And I'm not saying we lost in a bad way, but I don't know if we lost in a good way either. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it was a strange one. It was like, it's hard to describe it because, like you said, the opportunity was there, the carrot was dangled. And like you said, we just failed to sort of capitalize on it. And I just think there was a muddled philosophy. I think if you look at Tej Narayan Chanderpaul, I think he realized early on, there's no point trying to play out singles. He started to attack, which is similar to what Markram did in both of his innings. And later on, we saw Blackwood and Jason Holder go on the counter-attack. So I think the batsmen realised the only way, really, they could play on this pitch and win was to counter-attack. And they attempted it, and most of them faltered. As you said, a lot of them played unnecessary shots. They were going for the win. So I think it reflected their lack of confidence in being able to navigate the chase defensively on this pitch. So they went for the counter-attack, and it obviously didn't pay off for a lot of batsmen.
Yeah. But then, I mean, in fact, let me bring up this comment because maybe this is what I'm getting at. Javon says you can't play grime ball in South Africa. But we don't have the players to play shots, right? so what are we supposed to do then? Well, surely we have to stick to our principle. You can't tell a team that only has two guys that play shots in Mayers and Blackwood to say, well, boy, what you do know, which is grime ball, you can't do that in South Africa. Well, so what are we supposed to do in the second test then? We only know what we know. So I don't know. Is that too reductive of a statement to make?
No, I think as well, when you factor in the time, 2.5 days, in theory, if West Indies were to go at 1 and over, they would have won the match pretty much. So they would have had enough time to go. They could have played the grime ball, and not even a grime ball, just played more sensibly, block it out, play more defensive. Like you said, it's sort of where we've been leading in Test cricket, down this route of doing that. But as you said, we suddenly all decided that we were all shot makers, when realistically, the only one, probably Mayers has been out of form. So Blackwood's probably the only batsman in that side who's a shot maker, who's in form. And he's the one who top scored. Everyone else attempted it and failed. So I don't know. This partly could come down to the coaching. Sort of what did he say going into that fourth innings, and how did he say to play it? Did he give them the go-ahead to play more counter-attacking to try and get this target down quickly because of the pitch? Or how did he try to instill the values that have been built up in the Zimbabwe series? So it'd be interesting to see, but I just feel there was lack of clarity throughout the side.
Yeah, no, and I think some of them lost their head. In look at Tage, right? In the 9 test match innings he's played, how many times have you seen him play that shot? So was to me, that's a brain fade. What's Tage doing? The man had to step on a step ladder to hit that shot. So what on earth was he? I'm not blaming him, but I'm just saying it articulates that sometimes the pressure comes from within, because there's no way Andre Coley said go play your shots, Tage. Tage didn't have to do that. Sometimes it's just play your natural game. The chase of 247 did not demand having to play shots early, if that makes sense. And like I say, though, ultimately, though, if you had said to me 2 weeks before the tour started, boy, West Indies will lose the first test match by 87 runs, I would have said, I'll take that. Because given how we normally play away from home against a team that is better than us, you take it. And you take it and you say, okay, what can we learn from that moving into the second test? And I still say that on paper, Santokie, when you really chop the test up, right? South Africa made 3-4-2 in the first innings, right? At one point, they were 221 for 1. So really and truly, if you really break the test match up, South Africa's middle order essentially contributed nothing throughout the test match. Their middle and lower order really didn't do anything of note in the test match. They won. South Africa, for me, won that test match because we took too long to adapt on the first morning to the necessary length. Some will say line and length, but I'm just going to say length. The necessary length that was needed to be successful on that track. It doesn't mean we bowled badly. We just didn't bowl with any real penetration, right? Yeah. Obviously, Elgar got dropped on 25, but Elgar and Markram got a start, and that gave a foundation. So even when their middle order fumbled, they had enough of a foundation to ultimately a score over 300 was too much on that track. That's what the rest of the test match showed. And the only reason they made over 300 was because we gave them a 200-run head start, in essence. You take that away, and it sounds so easy to say it, but you take that away, and arguably West Indies might have won this test match. So the point I'm trying to make is it's just the opening partnership that was the real difference between the two sides. I can't even say that South Africa significantly outbowled us. I don't even think it's that simplistic to make that point. I just think the opening partnership, in hindsight, took the game away from us.
Yeah, it's ironic. It's similar to when we played the home series, how Quinton de Kock was the difference maker. In this regard, as you literally say, 141 partnership between Markram and Elgar was essentially the difference. And because our bowlers failed to adapt to the pitch, it obviously read differently from predictions. Because, like you said, their line and length, they didn't adjust it. That small margin of those 2 sessions on day one essentially allowed South Africa the breathing room to go ahead and win it. Because, as you said, the middle order was abysmal. And the bowling, obviously, Nokia and Rabada were exceptional, as you'd expect. But likewise, Joseph and Roach were exceptional for West Indies. I think the bowling was like for like. So the difference making was literally just that opening partnership, which is probably why it's hurt fans a lot more, because we do know it was fine margins that sort of prevented West Indies from getting an iconic win in South Africa. But Mash, we've talked about, the negatives and the pitfalls of the batting so far. I think it's only right we give flowers to Alzarri Joseph. Got a 5 in the first innings. You've tweeted about his maturity. He's shown a lot more consistency. I agree with you. I think he's going to lead West Indies in the test arena for the future, sort of the long-term successor to once Roach and Gabriel have retired. And then Kemar Roach, again, showing, a lot of doubters said he couldn't do it away. He hasn't taken a 5-er since 2017 against England. Proved it today in the second innings. Really, really, considering South Africa had the opportunity to completely bat us out the game. He literally, by single-handedly, dragged West Indies in with a chance to give the platform where we could have won it in the 4th inning. So I think Alzarri Joseph and Roach, very, very 2 positives to take from this match.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's anything further I can really add on that. I think Roach's 5-er was a timely reminder to West Indian fans that when we want to, we are specialists in as West Indies fans of writing off players that actually do contribute and giving a blight to people who aren't doing anything of any substance whatsoever. So people are being quick. Look what we've done to Bonner. We've written him off and said, go home. You're no good to us with your test match average of 38. People wanted to tell Kemar Roach, you're done. You can never travel away from home again. You can't bring anything to the side. So, and that's a man who's the 5th highest wicket taker in West Indies history in test cricket, right? And we want to tell man to go sit and don't play for us no more. We want to tell Bonner, sit, you can't bring nothing to us. But we want to cut a blight to a man who's making no runs. Like that I think that's West Indian fandom, right? In a nutshell, we can be very irrational in the way we look at things. So yes, flowers must go to Kemar Roach, 100%. At the end of the day, his experience is still going to be needed in that West Indies dressing room going forward. He will eventually have to step aside. He will eventually have to be phased out. And we will, and when I say we, I mean Cricket West Indies and the selectors, will have to be more selective about when he plays, what conditions, and who against. But to just write him off and say, well, boy, he should never travel anywhere again. I'm glad that Kemar kind of made a statement and said, don't write me off just yet. I can still make telling and meaningful contributions. That's with and obviously Alzari is Alzari. I feel like we should mention Jason because I thought Jason was good today. He's another one who's been coming under some slack recently, and rightly so. But Jason bowled 7 overs today, 2 for 7. And he was on the money from ball 1 this morning. I don't think he gave away any freebies at all. Now, is that enough to get people off his back? No, but I hope that might signal a start of, I don't know, Jason making some more meaningful contributions. Is he under pressure for you, Santokie?
I don't think he's under immediate pressure, but I think the fact that, Jason Holder's always been someone who's performed with the bat, here's someone who's got a double century in Test cricket. I think the fact that he is in this match, he only scored 18 runs. Joshua De Silva has moved above him in the order. I just wonder if he's sort of winding down his batting and trying to focus more on his bowling. But I think looking at it, I think by his own standards, when what we expect from him as fans, the fact that he's not performing with the bat is a concern. But I just think what he provides as an option with the ball and the fact that he has the potential to always do a big score in Test cricket, lower down the order, means I don't think he's under immediate pressure. But in this second test and against India later this year, if there are more inconsistent performances with the bat, I do expect his spot to be questioned.
Most definitely. And one person spot who he's earned himself another time extension. I love Jermaine Blackwood, He always produces an innings that gets him the time extension when people are coming for him. But again, like I say, Santokie, in my mind, we were never going to chase 247, right? But in the context of everything that was going on around him, it was a magnificent innings by Blackwood. And it was owned, in truth, when we look at the whole match, his innings was only second to Markram in the match in terms of making it look like it was a pitch you could play shots on and make it look like there was no dangers, but that you could actually ride it out and score some runs. And that's in addition to his 37 that he made in the first test. To me, Santokie, Jermaine Blackwood would be the last middle order batter I'd be looking to drop. I've always said that, but I understand why people get frustrated with him. Where do you stand on Blackwood, Santokie? Do we persist with him because of his ability to play innings like this? But we know it's like a 1 in every 3 or 4 type situation.
Yeah, I think we have no choice but to persist with him. He's 1 in 3 or 4 compared to the rest of the middle order, who's about 1 in 8 or 9. So I think his position isn't under threat. Not because I don't think he's been performing exceptional. As you said, he does produce standout innings when needed. But I think just in comparison to how poor, the likes of Mayers has been with the bat and now Chase coming in at number 5, I think in comparison that he will be further down the list in terms of his place being considered. So I'd like to see a bit more consistency from him. He's now a senior player in the side. There is obviously a lot of responsibility on that as vice captain as well. So I would like to see more consistency. But as well, I think the fact he always has these capabilities of producing standout knocks, especially when his place is being questioned, means that I think he will remain in the side going forward, at least for the rest of the year in terms of test. So it was a brilliant innings, as you said, second only to Markram. He was playing with, Chase, Mayers losing their wickets very, very quickly, had to bat with the lower order, hit 13 boundaries in total, really took it to the South African attack, and gave us a small glimmer of hope that we could pull off the win, which is the most important thing. So yeah, stand out from Jermaine Blackwood today, and I don't think his place can ever be questioned at the moment.
So with that in mind, you must know where I'm going next then. So I take this talking point from those who started it in the Discord channel this afternoon whilst the match was going on. And in fact, I tweeted it, Santokie. I tweeted some data about Roston Chase and Kyle Mayers, right? So for those who haven't seen it on our timeline, and for those who aren't in the Discord channel, this is what I tweeted earlier today. Between August 2019, when I think India came to the Caribbean, and December 2021, when West Indies went to Sri Lanka, Roston Chase averaged 17 with the bat and 46 with the ball. He was then dropped after that. He didn't play in the England series. He didn't play in the Bangladesh series. Both of those series we won, and we won well. He then got recalled out of nowhere to go to Australia as the frontline spinner. He went to Australia as a frontline spinner and batted number 8. He did make a 50 in fairness. He then went to Zimbabwe, made another 50, batting at number 6 as a batting all-rounder with Gudakesh Moti as a frontline spinner. In this test match, Santokie, against South Africa, he's now batting number 5. So Santokie, explain. Explain to me, Santokie, how he's managed in 1 year to be rightly dropped for poor form and now be straight back in the top 5 again. How has that happened, Santokie? And this isn't about digging out Roston Chase and saying I want him out of the West Indies team, but no one as of yet has been able to give me a clear explanation how this has happened.
He's definitely a catfish. He's catfished the selectors. I just think in Australia the tour came at the right time because it was a tour where it was felt we didn't need a full-time specialist spinner on those pitches, and Chase sort of hit the criteria of someone who can perform with the bat occasionally, but then also is handy with spin. So I think, and obviously there were off-field issues with Rakeem Cornwall at the time, which meant he didn't get selected. So I think Chase was in the right place at the right time. As you said, he got a vital half century in Australia, kept his place in Zimbabwe half century. And at this point, as we've said, in that 4th innings, there seemed to be no logic or coherent strategy in that 4th inning. So they just sort of threw Chase in and said, you know what, bat at number 5. Let's see if you can get some runs on the board higher up the order. So I just think Chase has been at the right place at the right time. He's been very lucky to make it back into the West Indies side. But as you always said, Mash, the outcome doesn't matter. I mean, if Chase performed well with the bat, okay, you give credit. But what is the process? Where's the process that led to him getting a recall? And that's a wider question, which has been recurrent throughout the past year in the West Indies side. What is the process? Where is the logic for players getting picked, particularly in Test cricket? Because there was no justification for Roston Chase. He didn't go back to domestic cricket and put out standout performances. So what was the criteria for him making it back into the Test side other than being a bits and bobs batter and bowling all-rounder who could sort of fit the role in Australia and was sort of recalled out of nowhere? So it is very puzzling, but at this point, you can't really even overthink it. You can't really try and put yourself in the shoes of the selectors because there is no strategy with a lot of things going on in West Indian Test cricket at the moment.
So hold that thought. I'm not going to challenge you on any of that. Just hold that one. So then the next thing I did was I pulled Mayer's stats, right? Mayer's obviously debuted in Bangladesh, start of 2021, had the big double century, big celebration. Then against Sri Lanka came to the Caribbean straight after that tour, and I think Mayers hit 250s in that series.
Yeah.
That was in March 2021. Since that series ended, Santokie, in March 2021, Mayers has averaged 23 with the bat, right? If he didn't even have that double century, man's average right now would be low 20s, right? He's been averaging 23 with the bat since March 2021 to now. However, he has been averaging 19 with the ball. My point is this. How can a man who's been averaging 23 for I know he scored a century versus Bangladesh, but then that even shows you, Santokie, that the century he scored versus Bangladesh at home, that shows you how low all the other scores must have been for him to still be averaging 23 since March 2021, right? My argument is, and again, this isn't a hate on Mayers whatsoever. I like Carl Mayers. I think he's a very good cricketer, but he's batting in the top 6, Santokie. So when you put those two people together, you have Roston Chase batting at 5 with a test match average of 27. You have Carl Mayers batting at 6, who's been averaging 23 for the last 2 years in cricket, right? I don't know if we're going to make any changes for the second test, but I'm expecting changes to be made by the time India come to the Caribbean in June and July, right? And this is where I now come to you, Santokie. And the reason why I'm saying I expect changes to be made is because at some point, Santokie, we have to look at our top 6 and say we have to pick some pure batters, people who are actually in the top 6 to bat, not because they can do something else, not because they can bowl a bit or they can swing the ball a bit or they can offer us some part-time spin or some left arm medium fast bowling. Why? I guess we sent Bonner home. Bonner don't do anything other than bat. Why is our top 6? Why has our top 6 got 3 all-rounders in it, Santokie? What's help me understand, Santokie. I don't understand.
I think firstly it shows a lack of faith in our bowling attack. The fact that, Mayers and Chase, Mayers in particular seems to be in the side, because he's handy, they call him golden arm handy at certain times to pick up wickets. And I think just going back to Mayers, I think he's a classic example at the moment of essentially being a highlight reels test player in terms of he hit that double century against Bangladesh. That essentially brought him basically a year and a half in the side. You can never get dropped after hitting a double century for a long period. Then I think it was against England in the test we won in Grenada. He took a fifer. Yeah. Then the century against Bangladesh. So he's essentially off those big moments. It's essentially excused him from, as you said, the low scores he's made and sort of lack of contribution to our other test games. So he's essentially provided big moments which have bought him time. But I'm with you, Mash, completely 100%. I don't know why, especially now that Alzavi Joseph is showing some consistency. And when you've got Jaden Seals coming back from injury in a few months, we've got a bowling attack we can rely on. Moti as well has stood out as a frontline spinner. So we've got that option. If we've got confidence now in a set bowling attack, I don't see why we need to ply our top 6 with all-rounders. We just go for specialist batsmen. So, the names we've been talking about for a time now. So, Nkrumah Bonner, you'd expect him to put up runs in domestic cricket. He should make it back. Brandon King is the big one for me. Brandon King is a perfect example of someone who needs to be in that top 6. And, if Darren Bravo hit twin centuries for Trinidad and Tobago in the last domestic match, if he scores again in domestic cricket, you'd be looking at him. So, all 3 of those players are specialist batsmen who, play
Athanaze as well. If they called Athanaze
they've called Athanaze as well,
then he has to be considered.
So Athanaze as well. Yeah, I was just about to go to him. Athanaze as well. We got someone in there. So I think there's about 4 or 5 batsmen from the region who we can call in to come into that top 6, because I just think we don't have a major issue with our bowling lineup. We've got a good bowling lineup, but our batting has been it's not even been poor. It's been abysmal. So we just really need to massively fix that area. And the only way you can do that is firstly by getting rid of all-rounders who batting isn't necessarily 100% their strong point. It's because they're handy with the ball as well. We just have specialist batsmen at top 6, really shore it up and go from there.
Yeah, because fundamentally my issue, and I think I said it before the test series. In fact, when I went on One World Sports Radio, the South African radio channel podcast as well, Full Quota podcast, I said to them, I've got an issue with our all-rounders. We shouldn't have, and again, this is no slight on the players, but I just don't think we can have a team that has Holder, Reefer, Chase, and Mayers, because whenever people talk about all four of them, you often find that people are talking about, they could do this with the ball, but no one ever says, and they can do this with the bat. Everyone knows that in the back of their head, they're like, and it may come off with the bat. From the minute you're saying it may come off with the bat, the person can't be in your top six. They've got to be batting number 8 or 9 then, if you're saying, well, it may come off. Like, that don't make any sense. That don't make any sense to me whatsoever. So here's the next question then, Santokie, because people are saying in the chat, where is it? Let me pick up some examples. Where are we? So Sano Gaming says Bravo and Athanaze should come in. In fairness, he's more thinking long term, but there's Athanaze as an example, right? Damien Smith says Mayers, Chase, and Holden de Silva should sit out the next match. I'm coming, Santokie. I'm just getting them on the screen. Casanova says de Silva out for Devon Thomas next match. Kurt says Thomas in, de Silva out, Chase out, Multi in, Mayers out, Alec in, Jason out, Jordan in. So that's just 4 people saying it, right? And those of you who are in the comments, put yours in the chat. I'll bring them up on the screen. I'm not making 4 changes for the next test match, Santokie. Me talking to you about Chase and Mayers and just bringing up some statistical evidence is me looking longer term to when India turn up in the summer and me saying, boy, there needs to be a plan about the makeup of the test side. But there is a second test in when is it? Is it next week? When's that test even start? Let me just check. Starts, Wednesday. Next week, Wednesday, the 8th of March, right? How many changes you making and who for, Santokie? I wrote this down earlier on, so I'll quickly tell you mine. If Multi's fit, Multi has to come in for me, and I'm dropping Gabriel. That's the first change I'm making. But I'm not dropping Gabriel because I thought he was trash. I'm dropping Gabriel because I know he's in the ODI tour. So I'm just like, you know what? If someone's got a goal, Gabriel comes out and Multi comes in. You keep roaching. Well, he just got a 5-foot and he's going home after the test series. So Multi in, Gabriel out if Multi's fit. Then I'm dropping one of Chase or Mayers for Devon Thomas. It should be Athanaze, but because Athanaze didn't get to play the tour game, I'm not throwing man in. I can't throw him in off the back of, well, you've had some net practice and you were you were a fielding substitute in the first test, but you got no match practice before coming to South Africa itself. So to me, you have to go to the experienced pro, which is Devon Thomas. So one of Chase or Mayers holds a drop for me. I'm going to ask you what you would do, and then I'm going to ask you what you think the selectors will actually, or whoever's selecting the team, what you think they will actually do. If Multi comes in, I don't think you need Chase in the side, but I actually think Mayers might be the one who should hold the drop first. What do you reckon, Santokie?
Well, firstly, I think I saw a few comments saying Joshua De Silva should get dropped. But
don't say nothing. Hold that one. We're coming to that one next. Because
all right, cool. That's why I'm baffled about that one. So yeah, it's an interesting one. If Moti comes in, if we're looking at bowlers who's going to get dropped, Shannon Gabriel for me should get dropped. But I'm thinking because he had an abysmal performance in this test, he bowled 15 overs, took 2 wickets. But more importantly, in the second innings now, he's coming in with us 78 for 7. His 3 overs, he gives away 26 runs. That's madness, the way he was bowling. And he something like 9 no balls across the game. I thought he had an appalling game, Shannon Gabriel. It wasn't worth him. The 2 wickets weren't worth essentially what he gave away on those 26 runs in the 3 overs. Because in the context of how much we were in the game at 78 for 7, to give away 26 runs within the next few overs.
Yeah, good point.
It wasn't match losing, but it was almost match losing, essentially, in terms of how damaging it was. And I just think the fact that he didn't bowl that much in comparison to other bowlers, gave away a lot of no bowlers, I just didn't see the plus of having him in the side. I think probably it would have been better off to have Akeem Jordan in the side, to be honest, if I was looking at it. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. So going forward for the second test, especially as you said, he's going to be playing the ODI. So Moti would come in for him. I think it's a tough one. You'd think with Moti in, there's no need for Chase, but then based on statistical performances, Carl Mayers would be next in line for a drop. So I think selectors will drop Mayers if it was between Mayers and Chase getting dropped for Devon Thomas. I would be more likely to drop Chase just because I think Carl Mayers can offer something with the ball in South Africa for the second test. I think if you've got Moti in the side, you're not going to need Chase as well, bowling spin. So I would go with Chase, but I can see the selectors drop in Mayers because Chase obviously has a good luck charm about him to make it back into the side and hold his place. So I think that will continue and Mayers would hold the drop if Devon Thomas comes in. The plot twist could be if selectors think, you know what, let's throw Athanaze in there. He's on debut. He could be on a high. As we've seen with a lot of players making debut in cricket in any format, they often, on that adrenaline, put together a decent performance. So they could throw him in for that sort of edge dynamic. I think it's unlikely, but it could be a possibility. But most likely for me, the changes will be Moti for Gabriel and Thomas for Mayers.
Moti for Gabriel, Thomas for Mayers. Yeah, I would rather have Chase out. I think, you're right. Statistically, it should be Mayers. I just don't think you need Moti and Chase. I think, but Chase is still, he's got what, the 50 in Australia, the 50 in Zimbabwe. So I guess you kind of have to keep Chase in, right? The other reason to play Alec Athanaze, though, is because these matches don't mean anything. Like, and I think, again, you tweeted this earlier on. World Test Championship is done out here, right? So although we're playing for World Test Championship percentage points, it's actually pointless, right? Yeah. So if you called the man to come to tour, there's actually an argument to say you make a whole heap of changes because why not? Do you get where I'm coming from? Like, because effectively, isn't it a glorified friendly? So you have to kind of think long term with this thing. If we fly Athanaze back and he never got to play no game, he therefore misses the third round of the domestic, the West Indies Championship. So what did he gain from coming to? What exactly did he gain from coming to South Africa, other than maybe talking to Brian Lara and Jimmy Adams and having them talk to him about his batting technique and so on and so forth? So he flew him all that way for what? So there's an argument to say that the game don't mean nothing. Play Thomas, play Athanaze, give every man a game who didn't get a game. I know that won't happen, but there isn't. In fairness, there's an argument to say do that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think, especially because it's a two-test series, it's not as if a series win is at stake here. As you said, in the context of the world, most tests coming under the World Test Championship, and these matches not having any points at stake in terms of we're both eliminated, us and South Africa, it essentially is a chance to experiment, especially when you think we've got India coming up in July, and those count towards the new cycle of World Test Championship. It might be worth giving Athanaze a shot in this South Africa series, just because what are we going to do otherwise? If India come in July and Athanaze has performed in domestic cricket again for the last two rounds, for instance, are we just going to throw him in against India? It might be better for him to get this preparation against South Africa with not much at stake. So that's a very good argument. And it's something that the selectors, I don't think so, because as we've always said, they tend to be quite conservative in terms of selections for the test side. But it is something definitely for the selectors to consider.
So, I mean, we'll leave the people in the comments to decide that. Someone did a super chat earlier on. I think, oh, here it is. Sorry, I missed it. Sorry. So obviously, Mr. Sci-Fi Andrew, I put yours up on the screen. I didn't say anything, but that was me acknowledging it. And Show and Nate of 400. Thank you. Sorry, I meant to put it up when Santokie was talking, and I completely missed it out. But thank you as well. You're echoing Santokie's point there about Brandon King getting a look in. Maybe Bravo will, who knows, maybe Athanaze. But I think most people, Santokie, are ultimately of the opinion that let's just put some actual batters in the side, less all-rounders. Now, let's move to Silva here. There's a couple, there's not even a couple. Let me pick out one example of a comment here. Mr. Casanova says, Devon Thomas can be behind the wicket. We don't need Silva. We need extra batters. Okay, cool. I'm not going to comment yet. I'm just going to take some. Thomas can keep wicket, Silva out. Okay, cool. Okay. I'm going to say something so reckless in a minute, Santokie. Get ready. Right. Mr. CCP, we need to stop making...
I said Mr. CCP.
Right, yeah. Mr. CCP, we need to stop making excuses for players like Silva. He deserves a drop. Okay, cool. So, listen. So that's just three comments on Silva. Here's another one. Sano says Silva is not living up to his name.
Oh my God.
Right. I'm going to say something right now, which is going to cause offense. I put it in the Discord channel earlier on, and I don't know how many people in the Discord channel saw what I put, but I'm going to say it now, live and in the flesh on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast YouTube channel. Do some of you have a problem with Josh Da Silva because he is a white West Indian? No, I said what I said. 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 Come at me now, people. Come at me. I said what I said because it doesn't make sense to me otherwise. Is it that some of you can't really accept it for certain things? Because Santokie, I gotta put it out there. I gotta put it out there because if you're looking at it statistically, what possible argument could there be to say, yeah, Josh Da Silva is useless? What possible argument could there be? The man averages 27, right, at this moment in time because he's just had a couple of failures in this test. Prior to this test, he averaged 28. The great Dowrich that everybody always says, bring back Dowrich, he averages 29. From about double the amount of tests that Josh Da Silva has played. Josh Da Silva bats at number 8. In fact, I mean, Josh Da Silva, I just had it up there just to make sure I had my stats right. For over half the number of tests that Josh has played, he's either batted 8 or 9. That means he's been batting with Alzari Joseph and Kemar Roach for the majority of his career. What do you want him to do then? What exactly are you asking him to do when more time you're telling him to construct innings with Alzari Joseph and Kemar Roach? Come on, man.
But also Da Silva equaled the world record today, most dismissals by a wicketkeeper in an innings.
Listen, this is why I have to ask the question. Because I don't mind people saying Da Silva's not good enough, but you've got to come with some kind of clear rationale for me. Because if you ain't going to come with clear rationale, I'm going to have to start unpicking what the issue must be.
Yeah, I just think it's wild on the day
that, but I will say what I have to say.
I just think it's wild on the day that he equals a world record for actual wicket keeping that fans are calling for him to get dropped. So, boy, I'll let people in the comments discuss the little bombshell Machel's dropped on this video.
Listen, we might have lost subscribers after that comment, but I have to say what I have to say, man. but on a serious note, because if okay, let me put that comment to one side. People are saying bring in Devon Thomas because he's also a wicket keeper, but Devon Thomas for the last 2-3 years in the domestic system hasn't been wicket keeping. He doesn't wicket keep for Leeward Islands anymore. If anything, Devon Thomas has been playing as an all-rounder. He's been bowling medium pace and batting at 3 and 4 for Leeward Islands. So even if you're saying Devon Thomas must replace Josh Da Silva, for what reason is Devon keeping wicket? I know he can be a wicket keeper, but is he keeping wicket domestically anymore? So I've got no issue with Devon getting into the side, but Devon should be in the side as a pure batter if he's coming into the side. The issue I've actually got with Josh is we are hindering him by making him bat so low. We can't fully assess how good Josh is as a batter because he's never put in a position to really do anything with the bat. Yeah. And just for the record, people, just in case people don't know, when Josh has batted at 7 instead of 8 or 9, his average is higher. Okay, so when he's batted at 7, his average is much higher than when he's batted at 8. I know that some people say, "Oh, what does that matter?" But I just wonder if part of the issue here is the fact he spends so many innings batting with the tail, and he's a better batter than that. Okay, yeah. I don't know. I know that will have offended some of you by me having to go there, but I'll go there, innit? I'll go there.
I also think Devon Thomas, whilst he might be short term coming into the side, long term he's going to be 34 this year. So what are we saying is essentially you'll have at most 2 years at the highest level. So I think long term Devon Thomas isn't really an option we should be looking to implement it into the side. I know short term he's in this squad coming in, but I just think long-term De Silva is someone who's at the age where, you know, he can grow and develop into the role in the side. And I think Devon Thomas goes in the category of, at the moment, he's experienced, so he can fill in when needed. But I don't think he's a long-term solution to the batting woes in the side purely because of his age.
Yeah. So I want, but the thing is, I want Devon Thomas to get a go. I want him to get a go. I think he deserves his chance. But I just don't think it should be at the expense of Josh De Silva. There's far more. Listen, enough man put in. Why are you bringing up race? Listen, but I just think there's far more issues. There's far more issues than if I had to put like a list of the people that we should be scrutinizing in the West Indies team. Josh ain't even in my top 5. Not even in my top 5 or 6. There may be a day where we have to look at Josh as a wicketkeeper, but it ain't now. That's not a priority situation. Josh is averaging better than some of the people in the top 6. So what? How does that argument make any sense? Anyway, so Kurt says, Mr. CCP, I bet you money that if De Silva plays in the second test and he fails again, what will be your excuse for him? Let's wait and see what happens. Let's wait and see what happens in the second test for Josh De Silva. So, Santokie, I mean, I think we've effectively covered. I think we've effectively covered most stuff here. I mean, the second test, I can only go based on what my South African colleagues told me. They said that don't expect it to be a pitch. So don't expect the Centurion pitch to be replicated in Johannesburg. The Wanderers expect that to have a bit more in it. They expect Maharaj to come back into the side. So they expect there to be a tiny bit more for the spinners, which automatically makes it a far different game to the one we've just seen in Centurion. So we also have to be mindful that we can't just go off, well, boy, South Africa skittled us out for X, Y, Z, so therefore we need to do this, we need to do that. It's not going to be a similar pitch. It's not going to be a 3-day test. Well, famous last words. It shouldn't be a 3-day test match in Johannesburg.
But my thing is, if Moti is injured because he has a lower back injury, according to Cricket West Indies, we sent Warwick home, so it would have to be Chase as the frontline spinner.
Well, Chase will have to go back to number 8 and be the frontline spinner.
Chase occasionally he'll get dropped as a batsman and come back as a phoenix, well, the frontline spinner for the side.
Listen, wherever there's a gap in the side, Ross and Chase will fill it. So Chase will have to just do. In fairness, he didn't even bowl badly in this test, but he would just have to be. He would have to be the frontline spinner, you know. But listen, we get a couple of days off now, which is good. So for those who don't know the schedule, we now have Friday. I'm looking now. We now have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday off, and then the next test begins on Wednesday, the 8th of March, with the ODI series starting on the 16th of March. So a bit of a break, Santokie, before we get.
Let me ask you one question to wrap up, Mash. Do you think this test loss essentially rules out Kohli getting the permanent head job position, or do you think it was never the case of that?
That's a good point.
Because if he won in South Africa, if we got a historic win, surely he'd be a front runner. His name would have to be in the hat to get the permanent job, regardless of whether they wanted him in it or not. But I think now, with West Indies losing in pretty much a similar manner as to how we lose against, you know, quote unquote stronger sides in Test cricket, I don't know if that would essentially rule him out of ever getting a permanent job.
I'm going to have to take time and come back to you on that one, maybe in a later video. But what I will say is this. Because we're going to be because over the next 3 years, we're not even playing that much Test cricket. Similar to what South Africa have done, there is an argument to say that whoever takes the Test team has to be a domestic coach. Because we're going to be playing so much white ball cricket, I think if we split the roles, the white ball job should go to some kind of progressive overseas type coach who is like it can be like the equivalent of a DJ Bravo, but overseas, who just knows the game, like a Faf du Plessis, someone who knows the game inside out or something like that. I'm fine with that for the white ball job. But But I just wonder if for red ball and Test cricket, we have somebody who is based back home, is involved deeply in the domestic system, deeply involved in the kind of developmental parts of the game from youth all the way up, because we're not going to be playing that much Test cricket anyway. So at least if that person is involved with the domestic game, they know who's coming through. They're not having to go watch this man, that man, this man, because they're unfamiliar. They're already working with all of the youths coming up through the system anyway. They're already in the region. So this defeat doesn't mean that Kohli is now ruled out of the job. I think if at Wanderers we see a battling performance and they leave the South Africa tour having lost by 87 runs in the first game, and then, I don't know, let's say they lose by 3 wickets in the second test, well, that's better than we usually do in South Africa.
Yeah.
So I think all of those things have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic because South Africa have done implemented the model you suggested. Their red ball coach is essentially focused, his remit is to focus more on domestic cricket, be hands-on and involved, because South Africa, similar to West Indies, are playing so few test matches in the upcoming year. So a lot to see. It'll be interesting to see sort of with the Cricket West Indies election. I know Kishore Shallow announced his candidacy today officially. With the elections due to take place on March 25th, you'd imagine any permanent appointments would be made once the new president, whether that's Shallow or Billy Heaven, takes the reins. So it probably won't be long. Probably this time next month, we'll find out who will be that permanent coach. So a lot coming up for West Indies cricket, as you mentioned, Mash. The white ball series, the presidential election, appointments of permanent coaches. We've got the West Indians in the IPL across April and May and June. So a lot to take in, and we'll be here covering all of that action and, just dissecting things as we continue to rally behind the Maroon.
Yeah, for real. I saw one comment before I shut down. Colin here just said Badri was appointed assistant. Assistant to what? Do you know about that? What? To the white ball team? I haven't heard this. Colin, you have to send us a message from there. That's news to me. Assistant for who? Have you heard that, Santokie?
I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything either appointed about that. But it wouldn't surprise me because he obviously has worked in franchise cricket. I just haven't heard it before.
Yeah, the same thing. So I'll look into that, people. But listen, as Santokie says, people, thank you for at one point, I think there was like 165 of you in the live and stuff. If you haven't yet, before you go and before I shut the show down, do press like, send it in WhatsApp to someone and say, do you know about these Caribbean cricket podcast guys? One of them tried to start a race war. Send that and let them know that.
Sorry, Mash, just to come in. Yeah, so reported in the Trinidad Express today, I imagine it hasn't come officially, Badji has been officially appointed as assistant coach for the white ball legs of the South Africa series.
Well, there you go. So exclusive news just hitting on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast channels. Samuel, in fact, we've got Samuel's details. Maybe we need to get him on the show, Santokie. But Samuel Badri has been appointed assistant coach. That makes sense, though. That actually makes sense in terms of I literally just said to you 5 minutes ago, someone like a DJ Bravo who knows the there you go. Samuel Badri is now assistant coach on the white ball leg of the tour. So yeah, let's see how that unfolds. I think that's fine. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, definitely.
So, as I was saying, people, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We'll be back with some more content, getting ready for the second test match. If you haven't joined our Discord channel yet, the description is underneath the video when this video shuts down. Join it. There's hella jokes in there all day long. Enough cussing about all things West Indies cricket. And we'll see you on the other side. So, thanks as ever. For being a part of the show. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.